The cages shook when he walked past. Air inside the arena's lower chambers was thick with the scent of fear-old metal, dried blood, and something deeper, something primal. The beasts could smell it. They always could, even behind the thick force fields. Their yellow eyes tracked the newcomer. They didn't blink. They didn't move. They simply watched. A small group of alien handlers, dressed in black and red armor, stood to the side of the corridor. Their faces were unreadable, masks covering everything but their eyes. But even they leaned away when the human passed. His name was Rael. He was tall for a human, lean but not weak. His clothes were simple dark cloth, worn boots, no weapons. His expression calm. Too calm. They had expected a soldier, a warlord, maybe even a telepath. But he wasn't any of those. He just walked, and as he passed, something strange happened. The beasts, creatures bred for war, trained to tear through armies, didn't growl, didn't hiss, didn't slam against the walls like they usually did. When meat walked by, they lowered their heads. They whimpered. The alien commander, a five-eyed braggart named Guld, narrowed his gaze. "This is the one they sent?" He muttered, his voice low. "The champion from Earth?" One of his assistants nodded. "They say he doesn't fight like we do, doesn't need to." Guld scoffed. "Then he won't last 5 minutes in the ring." They were wrong. Rael stopped at the last cell. The beast inside was massive, 12 feet tall, all bone and muscle, with jagged horns and a mouth that dripped acid. It had killed 12 gladiators in a single match last month. No creature had survived more than 2 minutes against it, but now it didn't snarl. It crouched. Rael tilted his head. He didn't speak. He just looked. Something in his gaze, something ancient, something calm passed between them. Then the beast lowered itself to the ground, and for the first time in the arena's history, it rolled onto its back, exposing its belly. Complete submission. Gasps echoed through the corridor. "That's not possible," one of the braggart guards whispered, but it was happening. Rael turned to the guards, his voice soft but clear. "You don't need to beat them to tame them. You need to understand them." Guld stared at him, uncertain for the first time in years. The arena would begin tomorrow, and the crowd would come for blood. But they had no idea what they were about. To witness. Not death. Not violence. Something much stranger. Something only a human could do. **** far above the cages. In the Emperor's box, a silent figure stood watching the monitor feeds. A woman in white. Her eyes glowed faintly blue, and her face was unreadable. "Prepare the broadcast," she said. "The people need to see this." That night, as Rael sat alone in his cell, he whispered words only the stars could hear. "You're not monsters," he said softly. "You're just scared." He closed his eyes, and somewhere, deep in the dark tunnels beneath the arena, the beasts howled, not in rage, but in mourning. The cages shook when he walked past. Air inside the arenas lower chambers was thick with the scent of fear-old metal, dried blood, and something deeper, something primal. The beasts could smell it. They always could. Even behind the thick force fields, their yellow eyes tracked the newcomer. They didn't blink. They didn't move. They simply watched. A small group of alien handlers, dressed in black and red armor, stood to the side of the corridor. Their faces were unreadable, masks covering everything but their eyes. But even they leaned away when the human passed. His name was Rael. He was tall for a human, lean but not weak. His clothes were simple dark cloth, worn boots, no weapons. His expression calm. Too calm. They had expected a soldier, a warlord, maybe even a telepath. But he wasn't any of those. He just walked, and as he passed, something strange happened. The beasts, creatures bred for war, trained to tear through armies, didn't growl, didn't hiss, didn't slam against the walls like they usually did. When meat walked by, They lowered their heads. They whimpered. The alien commander, a five-eyed braggart named Guld, narrowed his gaze. "This is the one they sent?" He muttered, his voice low. "The champion from Earth?" One of his assistants nodded. "They say he doesn't fight like we do, doesn't need to." Guld scoffed. "Then he won't last 5 minutes in the ring." They were wrong. Rael stopped at the last cell. The beast inside was massive, 12 feet tall, all bone and muscle, with jagged horns and a mouth that dripped acid. It had killed 12 gladiators in a single match last month. No creature had survived more than 2 minutes against it, but now it didn't snarl. It crouched. Rael tilted his head. He didn't speak. He just looked. Something in his gaze, something ancient, something calm passed between them. Then the beast lowered itself to the ground, and for the first time in the arena's history, it rolled onto its back, exposing its belly. Complete submission. Gasps echoed through the corridor. "That's not possible." One of the braggart guards whispered, but it was happening. Rael turned to the guards, his voice soft but clear. "You don't need to beat them to tame them. You need to understand them." Guld stared at him, uncertain for the first time in years. The arena would begin tomorrow, and the crowd would come for blood. But they had no idea what they were about. To witness. Not death. Not violence. Something much stranger. Something only a human could do. Far above the cages. In the Emperor's box, a silent figure stood watching the monitor feeds. A woman in white. Her eyes glowed faintly blue, and her face was unreadable. "Prepare the broadcast," she said. "The people need to see this." That night, as Rael sat alone in his cell, he whispered words only the stars could hear. "You're not monsters," he said softly. "You're just scared." He closed his eyes, and somewhere, deep in the dark tunnels beneath the arena, the beasts howled not in rage, but in mourning. The first match changed everything. The arena roared with noise. Tens of thousands of aliens filled the stands, their skin glowing, their tongues hissing, their eyes fixed on the center pit. Above them, giant screens displayed the face of the human rail. While commentators shouted over one another in different languages, trying to explain the unexplainable. "The human has no armor, no blade, no pulse rifle. This is suicide." Even the Emperor's personal announcer, a three-headed creature, known for mocking challengers, sounded confused. "Today we witness either the greatest insult to our traditions or the birth of something new." The gates creaked open. Rael stepped onto the sand, barefoot, bare-handed, his clothes still the same dusty black. He did not look at the crowd. He looked only at the gate across from him. On the other side, the beast waited. Its name was Slark. A creature bred in the acid mines of Jorak 5. Its bones were reinforced with titanium. Its skin could survive plasma fire. It had never been tamed until yesterday, and now here it was brought back into the ring as a test, to see if what Rael did in the cages was real, or just a trick of fear and timing. The crowd held its breath. The bell rang. Slark stormed out, like thunder sand exploding behind its steps, its roar shaking the steel walls. It reached Rael in seconds, jaws wide open, claws ready to slice, and then nothing. Rael didn't move. He simply knelt, placed one hand on the sand, and whispered something. The beast skidded to a stop just feet from him. It panted, confused. Its chest heaved. Rael looked up, slowly extended a hand, palm open. The crowd screamed for blood, but Slark lowered its head and pressed its forehead into Rael's hand. Gasps. Silence. Shock. Guld, watching from the command tower, slammed his fist into the rail. "What trick is this?" But it wasn't a trick. Rael gently stroked the beast's cheek, then walked past it. He didn't give orders. He didn't shout. He simply walked. and Slark followed Dot like a dog follows its master. They circled the arena. Together Dot then Rael knelt again and whispered in the creature's ear. Slark raised its head, turned toward the Emperor's box, and bowed. The arena didn't know what to do. This wasn't how matches ended. This wasn't how beasts behaved. The scoreboard still blinked, waiting for combat. But there was no combat. Just quiet and awe. Asterisk somewhere. In the crowd, a young alien girl cried, not out of fear, not out of sadness, but out of something she didn't yet understand, something like hope. Asterisk that night. As the stars blinked above the domed roof of the arena, messages from across the galaxy poured into the Emperor's palace. They all said the same thing. We want the human. Asterisk beneath the arena, in the holding cells, Rael sat beside Slark. Feeding him by hand, his thoughts drifted to Earth, to a small animal shelter he once worked at. The people had laughed when he said animals didn't need to be broken to be trained. But he had learned something long ago. You can't force loyalty. You earn it. He whispered to Slark. They still don't understand, do they? The beast blinked. Once, and in the silence between them, there was something sacred. A bond. Asterisk elsewhere. Deep in the Emperor's war rooms, generals argued. He's dangerous, one barked. He's peaceful, another whispered. He's changing the beasts. What if he changes the people next? The Emperor said nothing. He watched the recordings on loop. The human kneeling, the beast obeying. And he wondered, what kind of creature turns monsters into allies without shedding a drop of blood? He looked out at the stars. And he felt something rare. Not fear, but curiosity. The bond that couldn't be broken. It started with one beast. But by the end of the week, Rael had knelt before 4 more. Each one had a different history, raised in death pits, sharpened by fire, bred with no purpose but to destroy. Yet each one, after stepping into the ring with Rael, chose peace. One by one. They submitted. Not to chains. Not to punishment, but to something none of the aliens could explain. He speaks to them. One of the arena guards whispered in the mess hall. Not with words, another added, with something else. Something deeper. The aliens began to argue in the streets. The broadcasts couldn't stop playing replays of the matches. People began to wonder, what if the humans were hiding something? What if their strength wasn't in weapons or numbers, but in their hearts? Still, others called it a trick. They said it was staged. They said the beasts had been drugged. So the Emperor ordered a test. Asterisk they brought in Grum, a beast known across the 5 systems. It was the only creature ever to kill its own handlers and escape its cell before being recaptured. A monster covered in scars, blind in one eye, with a bite force that could crush a skyship hull. They gave Rael no warning. They woke him in the night and threw him into the ring. No crowd, no announcer, just flashing lights and high walls. Cameras mounted everywhere. Grum burst into the arena, roaring. Blood still wet on its claws from the last time it was moved. Rael stood there, barefoot, half asleep. He didn't run. He didn't flinch. Grum charged. Rael waited. And just before the beast could strike, he dropped to his knees. It was not submission. It was something else. A message. I'm not here to hurt you. Grumma stopped, not because it was afraid, because it was confused. It sniffed the air, growled, circled Rael like a vulture circling a wounded prey, but Rael stayed still. He closed his eyes. He breathed slowly. And then he whispered, I see you. He said. The words were soft, barely audible, but something in them broke the silence. Grumma froze. It turned its great head to the side, tilted it, blinked. Then it did something no one expected. It lay down. Curled up beside Rael like a child beside a parent. Security forces panicked. Alarms rang, but Rael raised one hand and spoke, this time to the cameras. They're not beasts. You've just treated them like they were. **** By morning, the footage had gone viral across the empire. Reactions poured in, some furious, some hopeful. But all of them. Watching **** later that night, Guld stormed into the emperor's chambers. He's becoming a symbol, Guld snapped. Our people are starting to call him the Whisperer. Even some of the guards are saying they dream of the human. The emperor's face remained unreadable. He hasn't killed a single creature, he said quietly, yet he has won every match. Guld growled. We cannot allow this. Beasts are not friends. They are control, fear, power. The emperor turned to him. And yet this one human has more power than our entire fleet. ****. Meanwhile, in the dark tunnels of the arena, Rael sat with Grumma. The beast rested its massive head in his lap. He gently scratched behind its ear. And for the first time, Rael spoke of Earth. We had creatures like you once, he said. Big, wild, misunderstood, but they weren't monsters. He looked up at the stars peeking through the roof. Maybe no creature truly is. ****. The next match would be different. The Empire had decided. It was time to force the human to fight. No beasts, this time. Just another human. A prisoner. A killer. Someone with nothing left to lose. And if Rael refused, they would kill the creatures. He had tamed. Far away. In a quiet room beneath the palace, a young alien girl watched the broadcast alone. She placed her hand on the screen as Rael appeared and whispered, Please don't let them change you. ****. The storm was coming. And Rael would have to decide how far would he go to protect those who had once been feared. The fight he never wanted. The guards came for Rael before sunrise. No words. No warning. They cuffed his wrists tighter than usual and marched him past the sleeping creatures Grumma, Slark, the others, each one rising from slumber, growling. Softly as they saw him taken, their eyes followed him, confused, protective. But the guards didn't care. This wasn't a match for the crowd. This wasn't even for sport. This was punishment. ****. They took Rael to the underground ring, place where no lights blinked, where no cameras flashed. The walls here were old and stained. The kind of place where fighters vanished without a trace. Waiting for him on the other side was a man. Tall, broad-shouldered, eyes sunken, fists clenched. His name was Derek, another human. But this one had been broken long ago. He was taken from Earth years before, captured during a war no one remembered anymore. The Empire had turned him into something else, part machine, part anger. His body bore the marks of implants and shock scars. His face was blank, stripped of emotion, but Rael saw it in his eyes. Pain. The kind that never leaves. ****. Guld's voice echoed through a hidden speaker. You will fight, human, or we will slaughter your creatures while you watch. Rael said nothing. He looked at Derek, searched his face, and he saw it, the flicker of recognition. A piece of the man still inside the monster. You don't have to do this, Rael said softly. Darik didn't reply. He charged, metal fist swinging like a hammer. Rael dodged. Just barely. They're using us, Rael said again, stepping back. We're not enemies. A second punch came. This one clipped his shoulder, sending him spinning across the floor. Pain flared. His breath hitched. You can stop, he gasped. But Derek wasn't listening. He growled, shouted, rushed again. Rael didn't fight back. He didn't raise a fist. He only whispered one word, remember. ****. The strike never came. Darik stopped mid-swing. His chest heaved. His hand trembled. Memories flickered in his eyes. Trees, sunlight, music, earth. Then he dropped to his knees. His fists hit the ground, and he began to sob, Asterisk asterisk up in the control room. Alarms rang. Guld cursed. Terminate both of them, he ordered. But before the soldiers could enter the ring, something happened. The beasts came. They broke through steel walls and electric barriers like paper. Slark led the charge, followed by Grumma and two more howling, roaring, tearing through guards without killing, only pushing, only clearing a path. They reached Rael. Just as the blasters charged, the creatures formed a circle around him, and Darik. Looked straight into the barrel of a plasma rifle and bared his teeth. The soldiers hesitated. Stand down. One of them shouted, confused. We weren't trained for this. The beasts didn't attack. It just stood silent. Immovable. A wall of loyalty. Asterisk. A new voice cut through the chaos. The Emperor. His hologram shimmered above the arena floor. Enough, he said. The soldiers froze. The beasts bowed. Even Gold fell silent. Rael rose slowly. His arm still bled, but his voice was steady. This is what you're afraid of, isn't it? He said to the image above. Not the beasts, not the strength. He looked at Derek. You're afraid of what happens when we remember who we are. Asterisk. The Emperor's face remained calm. You were sent here to be broken, he said. Yet you have built something no empire ever has. He paused. Tomorrow you will face a final trial, in front of the entire galaxy. Asterisk. As the hologram vanished, the beasts circled closer, resting their heads against Rael's shoulders, his hands, his chest. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Asterisk. Later that night, Rael sat beside Derek in the same cell. He handed him a bowl of food. Derek didn't touch it. You spared me, he said finally. No, Rael replied. You spared yourself. Asterisk. Across the galaxy, the people stirred. Aliens of all kinds, rich and poor. Soldier and slave watched the replays. They saw the beasts protecting the human. They saw a man refuse to fight, and they wondered, what kind of power makes monsters kneel without fear? Asterisk. A child on a desert planet whispered to her mother, maybe the beasts weren't monsters. Her mother, once a soldier, nodded slowly. Maybe. The monsters were us. The trial watched by galaxies. The sun rose red over the grand arena. Not real sun, an artificial simulation, made by the Emperor's engineers, but today it felt real. The air hummed with tension. Every seat in the Colosseum was filled. Across the stars, over 6 billion viewers tuned in to watch what the Empire called the Reckoning, and at the center of it all was Rael. He stood alone in the massive sand circle, barefoot as always, no armor, no weapons. Just calm eyes, steady breath, and a quiet fire behind his chest. Today, he was not just a human. He was a symbol. Asterisk. From his private box above, the Emperor watched with his hands folded. Beside him sat Guld, face tight with fury. We should have crushed him, Guld hissed. No, the Emperor replied. We should have understood him. Asterisk. A voice echoed across the arena. Today the human faces his final trial, the announcer said. He will not face one beast. A pause. He will face all of them. The audience gasped. The gates opened. SLR came first, huge and snarling, but strangely quiet. Grumma followed, muscles rippling, one eye gleaming. Then two more beasts from the far systems. Tusked, scaled, fanged. All deadly. Then a fifth. One never seen before, silver-skinned, its breath freezing the air. The Emperor's personal creature, held in chains for a decade. 5 monsters. 5 death sentences, but they didn't charge. Walked calmly. They stood before Rael and knelt. The arena went silent. Not even the wind dared move. Rael stepped forward. He placed a hand on each creature in turn, then turned to face the Emperor's box. "You asked for a trial," he said, voice amplified across the galaxy. "So here it is." He looked at the beasts again. "Do they look like monsters to you?" The crowd said nothing. So Rael continued, "You've made them into weapons, trophies, nightmares, but they weren't born that way." He raised his arms. "They are what you made them, but they are also what they choose to become." He turned slowly in a circle, "And today they choose peace." Suddenly, a bolt of plasma ripped through the sky. A hidden turret, meant as backup in case Rael tried to run, had activated without command. It aimed straight for his heart, but Grumma moved first. The massive beast threw itself in front of the shot. The blast hit its chest. And the world seemed to stop. The crowd screamed. Rael fell to his knees beside the beast. No. Grumma's breathing slowed. His blood thick and black spilled onto the sand. Rael pressed both hands against the wound, trembling. "Stay with me, please." Grumma's eye met his. Not in pain, but in peace. And then it closed. Forever. Rage surged across the arena. The beasts roared. Slark howled. The others shook the ground with fury, but Rael raised his hand. "No," he said quietly. "Don't give them what they want." He stood slowly, his face wet with grief. "If we respond with hate, we become what they feared." In the Emperor's chamber, chaos erupted. Guld barked orders. "Send in the drones! Suppress them now!" But the Emperor stood. "No." He stepped forward, turned on the feed. "Enough death," he said. "Enough lies." He looked out at the crowd. "This man, this human, has taught us more in 1 week than we've learned in a century." He paused. "We called him weak because he didn't strike. We called him foolish because he knelt. But look." He pointed at the sand. "That is what strength looks like." A moment passed. Then a sound filled the airsoft at first. Then rising. Applause. From the audience. From across the galaxy. Even from soldiers standing in the shadow of the arena walls. That night, Rael sat beside Grumma's grave. A patch of earth had been made just for him. He lit a small candle, placed it in the soil. "You weren't a beast," he whispered. "You were better than most men." Slark curled up beside him, letting out a low, sad hum. And the stars above. Messages poured into Earth. Not of war. But of invitation. Requests. Please. Send us more like him. Teach us. Help us change. In a quiet corner of the Empire, a young alien girl practiced kneeling beside her pet for the first time, not to train it, but to thank it. Something was changing. And this time it couldn't be stopped. The galaxy chose the human way. A new sun rose over the Empire. Not just the artificial one above the arena. This light was different. It came from the hearts of people across the stars, hearts that had been cracked open by something they didn't understand before. Kindness. In the days that followed Grumma's sacrifice, the arena was shut down. The beasts were no longer locked in cages. Slark roamed the palace gardens like a silent guardian. Others were taken to sanctuaries where alien children sat beside them and listened to stories of the human who knelt instead of struck. And Rael? He didn't ask for anything. He never did. He refused gold. He refused titles. He just asked for one thing: bury the cages forever. The Emperor kept his promise. He stood on the highest platform of the capital and addressed the Empire. "We once ruled through fear," he said. "We built our name through dominance, but we were wrong." He turned to Rael, who stood at his side in simple robes. "This human taught us something we had forgotten." He looked into the cameras. "True power is choosing not to use it. Asterisk, asterisk, the crowd erupted into cheers, not because of the emperor's words, but because in that moment, even the most hardened soldiers knew they had seen something real. Asterisk, asterisk, but not everyone was pleased. In the outer systems, warlords who profited from the beasts began to whisper, "The human is soft. He weakens the empire. He must be removed." One of them, a cruel baron named Curseth, sent a message across the stars. A challenge. "Return to the outer pit." The message read, "No beasts, no emperor, just you and me." If Rael refused, it would be seen as weakness. If he accepted, he'd walk into a trap. Rael read the message in silence. Then whispered, "Send my reply." Just 3 words. "I accept it." Asterisk, asterisk, the next morning, he arrived on the dust world of Volmar. No armies. No guards. Just him, and a desert arena surrounded by mercenaries and outlaws who only believed in blood. Curseth stood waiting, twice as large as Rael, armor thick with spikes, a blade on each wrist. He sneered, "Where's your pack of pets now?" Rael looked around. Nothing but sand and wind. "I didn't bring them," he said calmly. Curseth grinned. "Good, now die." Asterisk, asterisk, the battle began. Curseth struck fast. Metal flashed. Dust flew. Rael dodged, ducked, rolled. He never attacked, only moved, but Curseth was relentless. He slashed Rael's shoulder blade. He kicked him to the ground. Pain. He raised his blade, but before he could strike, a shadow passed overhead. Then another. And another. Beasts. Dozens. Not summoned. Not ordered. They had followed. From planets far away. They had come for him. Asterisk, asterisk, Slark landed first, sand exploding beneath his feet. The others followed, horned, clawed, winged. They didn't attack. They simply stood between Rael and Curseth. A living wall. The mercenaries panicked. Some ran. Others dropped their weapons. Curseth looked around. Frozen, Rael pulled himself to his feet. "You still think strength is measured in blades?" he asked. Curseth growled, "You command monsters now?" Rael shook his head. "No, they chose me. That's the difference." Asterisk, asterisk, Curseth screamed and charged, but Slark stepped forward, roaring so loud the sand lifted from the ground in waves. Curseth fell back, dropped his weapons, and collapsed in defeat. Not out of fear, out of understanding. He had lost before the fight began. Asterisk, asterisk, by evening, the galaxy had seen the footage, and something shifted forever. Asterisk, asterisk, new laws were passed. Beast pits were closed, sanctuaries expanded, and a council half human, half alien, with creatures given a seat through translators, was formed. They called it the Unity Table. Its first speaker was Rael. Asterisk, asterisk, he stood before billions and said, "We feared the beasts. We locked them away. But fear is a choice. Kindness is too." He looked out into the stars. "We chose kindness. And now we begin again." Asterisk, asterisk, that night, as he walked through a field of sleeping creatures beneath alien moons, Slark rested his head in Rael's lap. "You did good," Rael whispered, stroking his rough brow. Above them, a shooting star fell, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy was at peace. Asterisk, asterisk, but in a shadowed corner of the void, something watched. Something ancient. Something that feared what humans had done, and it began to move. The final voice in the dark peace swept the galaxy like warm rain after a long storm. The pits were closed. The beasts were free. Humans were no longer seen as weak or primitive. They were respected, even admired, and at the center of it all was Rael. He did not call himself a leader, but when he spoke, millions listened. When he knelt, millions stood taller. For the first time in memory, empires began to share instead of conquer. The beasts, once feared and hunted, now helped rebuild ruined cities, rescued children from fires, and walked calmly through markets and schools. It was beautiful. But peace always makes the old darkness stir. Asterisk, asterisk, far beyond the unity systems, beyond the last stars mapped by the Empire, something ancient had awakened. A machine, race known only as the Null. They had no emotion, no faces, no need for control. They believed in one thing only, purity through silence. To them, life was noise, emotion, chaos. Beasts and humans alike were flawed systems needing correction. And when they saw what Rael had done, how one man had united enemies, with compassion, they sent one message to the galaxy: we are coming. Asterisk, asterisk, the first attack was silent. An outpost near the rim vanished without a signal. Then another. By the time the Unity Council received word, 12 colonies were already gone. Nothing left. Not a body, not a scream, just silence. Asterisk, asterisk, Rael stood before the council, his face calm but shadowed. They won't speak, he said. They won't listen. They will just erase. Can we fight them? Someone asked. Rael didn't answer. Instead, he turned to Slark. We've faced cages. Now we face extinction. The beast growled low in its throat, a sound that echoed in the bones of all who heard it. Asterisk, asterisk, they prepared not for war, but for survival. Rael didn't build armies. He built bonds. Across the systems, he sent envoys, not soldiers, but caretakers, translators, and brave children with beasts by their side. They spread the message: we stand together, or we fall alone. And people listened. Aliens who once hunted beasts now hid them in their homes. Beasts who once feared fire now carried wounded from battlefields, and when the Null arrived, they didn't find a scattered empire. They found a wall. Beasts and humans standing side by side, refusing to flee. Asterisk, asterisk, the final battle was not fought with fire. It was fought with unity. When the Null released their silencing wave, intending to shut down all minds in range, something happened. Slark stood before Rael, eyes locked, and then he roared, not in rage. But in memory. He roared the names of every beast that had fallen, every cage that had been broken. Every human that had chosen compassion over conquest. And from every corner of the sky, the beasts answered. A chorus of voices the Null couldn't silence, not because they were loud. But because they were true. Asterisk, asterisk. The wave shattered. The machines faltered, and then they stopped, not destroyed. But confused. For the first time, the Null paused their programming. They had expected war. They had received a song. Asterisk, asterisk, Rael stepped forward, face cut and dusty but unbroken. He knelt before one of the Null command drones. You fear what you don't understand, he said. But that doesn't make us broken. He placed his hand on the cold metal. Join us, or leave, but you will not erase us. For a long moment nothing moved. Then the drone backed away. The rest followed, and like a dark wave retreating from shore, the Null vanished. Asterisk, asterisk, the stars returned to quiet. This time, not from fear. But peace. Asterisk, asterisk, years passed. The unity table grew larger. Creatures, once hunted, now sat beside their former captors. They made music. They raised children. They remembered Rael. Asterisk, asterisk. Some said he vanished. Others said he wandered the stars, helping one planet at a time. But many believed he had gone, where no map reached, to find other beasts still trapped in cages. Asterisk, asterisk, and in a quiet sanctuary on a green world, Slark lay beneath a tree, old and gray. A small human child sat beside him. Did you really fight the machines? She asked. Slark blinked slowly. Then nodded once. Did the human really kneel for you? Another nod. The child smiled. I would have too. Asterisk, asterisk, in the sky above them, the stars flickered, and somewhere far away, a man knelt in the dust beside a new creature, afraid and alone. He whispered, "I'm not here to hurt you." And slowly, the beast stepped forward.